here from from Influx, if you don't mind. So yeah, we can kind of get rolling with the plan. So yeah, again, real quick, thank you again for joining. We definitely appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend with us. Also, we just appreciate you and all that you do in educating our future veterinarians. You know, I can say personally, I have 2 cats and a dog around here. One may make an appearance at some point. But as I mentioned, you know, we're in Texas, so it's really common to just see like cattle and livestock anytime you drive anywhere. So just kind of reiterate what you all do is extremely important to so many people in their ways of life. So we really appreciate it. And we're very fortunate to work exclusively with health science schools. And we, yeah, just can't thank you enough. So with that being said, quick intro. We've sort of met. My name is Ricky. My official title here at Influx is account manager. But like you know, I probably wear a few hats depending on what's needed, but a big part of my role is reaching out to potential clients. So I'm pretty lucky to be able to speak with folks like you on a fairly regular basis, pretty much every day. Joining us today is our fearless leader. She'll be the main presenter, Alejandra. She's the CEO. Feel free to call her Ale. That's what we all call her. But I'll tell you a little bit more about her here shortly. We also have Brandon Roskowski, who is joining us as a special guest, and he'll give a little bit of insight. He's actually an Influx customer, so he'll give a little bit of insight from that other side of the coin, I guess, as to what it's like being an Influx customer. So thanks again, Brandon. We definitely appreciate you being here as well. And just we may not need this as much, but a few housekeeping items before we officially get started. You know, we're calling this an office hour session because we truly do want it to be interactive, you know, like an office hour. So please, you know, we strongly encourage, if you have any questions at all, please ask. Either if you can speak up or just drop it in the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the whole session. So we'll make sure and answer all of them. But yeah, we really do want to have a little bit of a conversation going back and forth. And this is obviously, we're putting this on because we want to, you know, show folks what we're doing, but we also love getting feedback from people that are actually out doing the work that we're trying to support. So please let us know your thoughts, questions, anything you've got, feel free to let us know. So what is Influx, right? We are a company that works exclusively with health science schools. Right now, we're setting up meetings with vet programs. And what we actually do is just save a ton of time by helping with things like assessment and accreditation, identifying at-risk students, measuring curriculum effectiveness, among some other things. So there's obviously a lot that goes into doing those things. But I guess the short version is we're eliminating time spent working in spreadsheets or other manual processes. You know, pencil and paper is still pretty commonplace in a lot of cases. We're able to bring together some data sources that are normally siloed and separate, so we can get things together in one place visually. And then we're also able to automatically document a lot of activities that are normally done manually by faculty and staff, just freeing up a bunch of time for you and your programs. And then finally, a big piece of what we do, or how we're able to do what we do, is that we have official data partnerships in place with a lot of different ed tech companies, which basically means we can integrate directly with those platforms and automatically extract data. So this allows you to instantly view some actionable dashboards and some pretty cool reporting using all of that data that you've got in those other platforms. And the best part about that, it's all done automatically. There's no manual uploading on your part. So it just saves a ton of time and work and you know, potential for error. It's all done automatically. You don't have to do anything for it. So we'll take a quick look in this next slide. I'll if you can go to that next one. Some quick stats that we've got posted up here. Stuff we're pretty proud of. We've been able to process over 10 billion data points, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. We work with over 12 health science disciplines, and we've been able to help support over 100,000 students, over 50,000 courses. So that's I think that's probably enough about the company. I think you get the gist of it. And then real quick, before I completely hand it over to Ale, I will say Alejandra started this company 4 years ago, but the seed of Influx really was planted, you know, over 10 years ago when Ale was the director of assessment at the Fike School of Pharmacy here in San Antonio. So Alejandra's background was actually in industrial engineering, and she took that job as part of her student visa requirements. She needed to work on campus. She she's from Mexico. So when she started there, she was looking at the processes in place they had for assessment and just realized that there was a lot that could be done to improve them. So, from there, she really got to work getting a couple more master's degrees and really started building what we have now known today as Influx. So with that, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ricky. Thank you so much for attending today's session. I want to talk about competency-based education because it's the big topic, not only in vet schools, but also in nursing and pharmacy and in other disciplines. So we all know that that's one of the most important things that we need to do. And it requires a lot of data because the students need to be provided with frequent feedback so that they know how they're gaining knowledge on a set of competencies. So the big question that I have for today is, how do you track those milestones and competencies, and what tools are you using? And Brandon, if you want to share with us as well, feel free to. It's interactive. Let us know what were some of the ways that you were utilizing. How were you tracking the milestones and competencies? Are you doing assessments on paper, a software?
So yeah, for us before using Influx, it was sort of a hybrid offline manual process, doing the best we could to track in ExamSoft, which could be tedious and time consuming to, convince all the different instructors to tag their exam items to different sub-competencies or, special milestones that according to our overall framework. And it was just very tedious and sort of a static process. As you maybe know, the ExamSoft reporting tool isn't the worst, but it's not really what it could be. And I think that's kind of what led us to, what led me to try to find a better solution that could be instantaneous with everything that's all the technology available today. I just couldn't believe that something like this couldn't be automated and real time. So really just an ExamSoft.
Yeah, ExamSoft, there's a lot of different programs that are using ExamSoft. They're also using now the learning management system, like either Canvas that is doing outcomes, or they're also setting up like standardized testing. That's another way of making sure that they're tracking milestones and competencies. Carrie, what are you using at your program? What are some of the tools that you're utilizing to track milestones and competencies?
We also have a program that we use called eValue, and that's used quite a bit when our students are in their clinical year or year and a half. They use that, and we have started doing a mid rotation evaluation as well that is generated from eValue that the faculty member or the externship that they're on completes. So the student knows how they're doing halfway through the clinical rotation, as opposed to just waiting until the end to find out that they may not be performing. As far as our didactic students, we just kind of monitor that on a manual basis. We have a homegrown or a UGA system called ELC, which is similar to Canvas, and our office has access to the grades, and we kind of monitor how students' performance is going as far as that on a manual basis.
Great, that's great to hear. A lot of, as I mentioned, eValue is that ELMS system, experiential learning management system. Some schools are using their own homegrown learning management system. There's a lot of different ways of tracking this. I just wanted to share with you what some of the challenges that we're learning that the schools are facing and as they're collecting data. The challenge is that sometimes all of these processes, as I heard, the manual process of looking at the data takes time. And sometimes the insights get delivered too late, or and they add little value or zero value to improving student outcomes. And what I mean by that is, we all know the assessment happens. Then the person that needs to grade the assessment found the perfect time, and the clock is ticking. We know the data is ready for analysis. They graded that assessment. Now time keeps ticking, and then we analyze the data. We found the time to take a look at the spreadsheet and analyze the data. And then from there is, how do we disseminate those reports? We need to deliver the insights. Sometimes we deliver insights through emails, or we have another platform like SharePoint or other tools where we can share those insights. But sometimes we're waiting for that assessment committee to happen, or the curriculum committee, and that might be in a week from where the insights were delivered. So then you take action. You deliver the insights, something was discovered, and you take action. Well, for some of our customers, when they were taking insights before influx, sometimes it was late, or they didn't have enough time to help the students be successful. And I want to share with you a case study with the University of Charleston, West Virginia. They were going through this whole process to identify students at risk in the middle of the semester and at the end of the semester, so that they could help the students. It was taking them a lot of time, but it was getting done. And the thing is that when it takes so much time in such a short academic term, then we don't let the students have enough time to improve. Some of these students were in an academic advising session where the student needed more than 100 to pass the course on the upcoming assessments. It's too late. Well, they implemented Influx and speed up the process on these steps that you see here, and they were able to have a net impact of 6% less course failures by utilizing Influx for the academic early intervention. They just did a research poster on this, so I went ahead and took it from their research poster and posted the reference here. So these are some of the challenges. My promise for today's presentation is to share with you those challenges and provide ways that you can speed up the process with or without Influx, because I have been in your shoes. I was responsible for assessment and accreditation, and I want to share those insights with you. What are some of the ways that we can overcome some of those challenges, even if you don't implement Influx? So out of the steps that we talk about, Brandon and Carrie, what do you think were what was the top challenge out of these 5 steps?
Well, before I started, none of this was really happening. I would say it would go from the assessment being delivered at the course level to skipping the middle 3, and then some delayed reaction or some delayed action at some predetermined reporting period sometime after the first or last exam came in, and all the instructors have to, export their results and send those to this academic a student affairs office for the associate dean. And then the time lag, it's still interesting for me to see, because I see this every day, because they're still kind of habitually everybody's still using the old sort of system. And I meet with the associate dean and student affairs pretty regularly, and he'll just be getting some information using the old standard or approach, and I have been sitting on that information for 2 months. And it's not like I didn't just tell him. Like, I told him 2 months, and then I intentionally was like, okay, I'm going to give this to you today, and so you literally already know, like, the day after it happened. And then now we're just going to sit and observe the current system. And so, like, 2 months later, the same information I gave to him 2 months ago, he was then getting, and it wasn't standardized, it wasn't formatted. It comes in from all the different people and all the courses and the preclinical and everything. and then that has to get translated to a spreadsheet, and then they have to come up. And so as opposed to, I just have these nice little reports that I'm rambling, but to answer your question, none of that was happening in the middle.
Yep.
At least for us.
I have talked with a lot of different programs that they'll tell us we're just sitting on the data. We haven't even found the time to do the data analysis. And when we do is when we have the self-study, because that's the kind of the sense of urgency, right? The sense of urgency of saying we need to provide all of the analysis for the self-study. So we need to start doing that. Yeah. So I want to share with both of you, what are some of the steps to make sure that things happen and that we move along those 5 steps. And it can be as simple as on a spreadsheet. There's 3 steps. One is data centralization, then reporting, then we have the project management. So in data centralization, the things that need to happen is we need to come up with a list of data points that we need to integrate. Those, because there might be 100 data points in your program, but what are the top 3? What are the top 5 data points? And starting there. The second step is naming convention, or in a database world, they call it the primary key. How are we going to identify the students so that the student John Smith in data source A, B, and C is the same student, that there's an easy way to identify the student throughout the data sources. So they're called primary keys. Primary keys we need for cohort naming convention, we need it for courses, course names, we need it for competencies, and we also need it for student ID. And the list keeps going, but the most important ones is more of the naming convention of the student, the course, and even other labels where you want to group the students. The third one is integration. You need to find a database. What database are you going to be using? An Excel file is a database. It's totally valid, and we can put the data in there. So those are the steps that we recommend when it comes to data centralization. That's something I did at our pharmacy program. I was doing in Excel files, and little by little, it started moving into more of an Microsoft server. But it takes time, but it doesn't have to be a rocket that we are going to go to the moon. You can take some steps to get there. The second step is reporting. But before we start talking about like all the amazing dashboards that we can help you with, I want to share with you how I see reporting. You know, when you get into your car, there's dashboards, and you only see the things that matter to you. We could probably have 1,000 metrics about our car, but in our car in front of us are just a few metrics that matter. The speed, gas, those are the 2 that I always look at. Do I have any flat tires? How is the oil doing? Of course, if you have a Tesla, that doesn't include, you have way too much information on the Tesla that is overwhelming. But in here is old-fashioned, old car, they have simple metrics that matter. So in order to take the steps on reporting, the recommendations that we make is first, come up with a list of questions that you frequently need to answer with data. Set those questions, write it down, put them in a spreadsheet. Once you have those questions, then list the data points that you need for that to answer those, and generate simple reports, even in Excel, that can be connected directly to that Excel file that has all the data and is answering your questions. So going back to the steps is make sure that you have the list of questions that you need to frequently answer with data, and that you're creating a report that can answer those questions frequently. The second one is you need a schedule or a calendar schedule where you're saying, this is when I refresh the data, and this is when we report it to our audience. Is it the dean? Is it the assessment committee, the curriculum committee? It's extremely important to have that schedule, because if not, it's going to stay there. We're going to forget about updating the report, or we're going to forget about delivering it to the right person at the right time so they can make better decisions. Third, but not the least, I would say this is extremely important, is project management. Once those decisions are being made, it's extremely important to be documenting things as the program is doing them, because the goal is that when you have the self-study, you don't play treasure hunt. You have a process in place where you're documenting everything. And when you start the self-study, then you can start doing a true reflection of what you have accomplished and what were some of the challenges and what you did to overcome them. I have heard that a lot of people use Box or Dropbox to document everything, Google Docs, even Excel sheets. They're also using SharePoint. There's a lot of different tools out there that can help you manage those activities. But going back again is data centralization, the reporting, and the project management. Those are the 3 steps that can help you make sure that you're delivering the right insights at the right time so that you can help the students be successful. Because remember, competency-based education, we need to make sure that we're helping the students know where they stand so that they can own their own journey to be competent and ready to practice. So out of those 3, I always tell this to my team, and we're doing a lot of training lately on how to be strategic. Out of these 3, which one would you want to focus on? Which one do you think is the one that you need to focus on so that you can have an improvement? And what would be those 3 steps that you need to take? What are the big commitments? You don't have to share with us. I just want to tell you, like, this is the takeaway from this session. I just want you to go through this process and say, you know, maybe like you said, Brandon, everything, right? Nothing was happening. But if you attack everything, it's almost impossible. When everything is important, nothing is important. So what would be that first step that you would like to work on so that you can make an improvement on how you're tracking the competencies? So with that, Brandon, thank you so much for being with us today. Oklahoma State University School of Medicine has been our first veterinary school, and we have done amazing things, and there's more to come. But what are some of your insights, Brandon? Like, you told us about your processes before Influx, and now what does your world look like with Influx? And what are you doing with the time that you save on not manipulating stuff in spreadsheets?
I'll start with the time savings. I'm able to make more money.
Oh, great. Tell me more about that. I need to know.
Well, because now I'm not doing work that I could typically train someone to do that someone else would probably find very meaningful and challenging. And now that they do that, I don't have to do it, and I can grow my own practice, so to speak, or service within the college, and I can seek additional opportunities to, you know, increase exposure for the college, collaborate with other institutions, you know, participate in more grant projects, to some extent even translate the process, sort of the acquisition of all the knowledge and mastery sort of this end-to-end student achievement system. I could probably, from what I've learned just by working with your company, I don't know how, if this will make you happy, but I could even leverage just the knowledge I get from you into service for other people within the institution who maybe don't need this robust of a solution, but they still want help connecting their own dots within their own sort of microcosm, so I can better advise them even. And, you know, so first I just feel like I can make more money now, and I have been.
Wonderful.
Actually, just because conscious, so people, your name gets out there, it's like, oh, this guy, I don't really know what he's doing, but he's doing what we would want to do, best case scenario, right? And it's like, we don't know how to do it, and we're not going to do it, but, you know, I'll just talk to the, so time savings, that's my selfish time savings. But time savings, I think if I were to quantify, you could quantify it, but like I was saying earlier, after every single exam, the internal process that they had before was really every single IOR of every course had to report to the associate dean students who are at risk or were failing. and there was no standardized method for how those files were being received. The information came however it came, and then the associate dean's administrative assistant would then have to sort of clean and filter and put all that together in something and present it for them to discuss and take action with student affairs. One thing in particular, I don't know that I still think philosophically the shift from like traditional grading paradigm to a more competency-based, student-centered paradigm is the former is over reliance on traditional percentage academic performance grades. Like if you have an 80, you're doing okay. If you have a 70, you're doing okay. Personally, I don't really think that means anything, honestly. And I've been able to convince quite a few people here of that. It's much more useful for me if I were going to make a decision about, mentoring, assigning a mentor to a student who's at risk or some sort of remediation, is when I can now give them, instead of giving them a global rating, like you got a 90, that doesn't necessarily mean they're on track in all competencies. You can have an A and still be not competent. And that competency is going to just continue to cause a problem all the way to year 4. And so now this sort of early targeting system, I can add a little more specificity to overall performance by competency, species, system. And so, yes, you might have an A, but you are consistently, at risk, in anesthesia or something. And that type of information was never available until it got to clinics in 4th year, and people say, then you hear the little fight between clinicians and preclinical faculty, where it's like, these students are deficient in all these areas, and then the preclinical faculty come back and say they're doing great, they all have A's, and nobody understands what's going on. And then finally, Brandon will put a report in front of you and say, this is how you explain that phenomenon. Just because you have an A doesn't mean anything, honestly, in competency-based education. I'm just being direct.
No, absolutely. So as an informatician, the way we see it is you have data, which is the bottom of a pyramid, and then you have information. So in order to convert data to information, you need to add context. So saying that a student has an 80 on this course, that doesn't mean that, they're performing well. Yeah, they might have an 80, but they're failing competencies. And they go like that cumulatively. It's almost like compound interest. If the compound interest keeps going, and then when they get to graduate and take the board exam, they'll fail those competencies, because it was almost like that hidden number on the aggregate number of 80. The 80, it's a number. Information is knowing how the students are progressing in the curriculum. And that's the kind of information that we have at MFlux. And we provide you all of that, not only how they're performing on those competencies, but how were they assessed and what was the quality of the assessments. So it's the whole picture on that. And something, Brandon, that I wanted to share with everybody is that when we onboard you, we launched, we were able to onboard you in weeks, not months. We created the vet dashboards with your feedback, since you were our first vet school. Then from there, we train you with your own data. We did historical data syncs. So we pull multiple years of data because we want you to have that immediate return investment. It's not helpful, goes back to data versus information. Having just 1 year of data in one view, it's data. Information is seeing that trend across time. And then dedicated support from customer service. That's how we quickly implemented. And I want to share with you and our audience, what is MFlux? How does it look? Now we talk for half an hour, and I love talking about assessment and accreditation and data and transforming that to information. But I want to show you how we do things. We process all the data quickly. We're the only data analytics partner of ExamSoft, so we have that information as well. We have processed the NAPLI and the VEA. I know a lot of schools don't use VEA, but There's a group of schools that do. And then from there, in our platform, I want to go to curriculum effectiveness and gap analysis. Since Brandon, you brought that topic about 80 doesn't tell me much, right? Like they'll got 80 in a course. And let's take a look at in here. Imagine that this is one student. We're looking at the whole cohort, but imagine that this is one student. We would know how many items or how many questions they had for each of the competencies. And this is demo data, so it's selecting pharmacy competencies. But imagine that you're able to tell how they're doing on the domains and the milestones, and being able to click and see what assessments were utilized for that and what was the quality of the questions. Being able to track that, and we do it for the students. So we have this kind of information on the student level. What are your thoughts on this, Brandon? What are some of the ways that you're utilizing this kind of information?
I like this dashboard in particular, especially when I can I like first that I can transpose, transform, change columns and rows. So I can look at things like longitudinally. And it's like a quick pulse on honestly everything. You can look at item quality, program performance by system, species, whatever category you're tracking by. I also really like it kind of all in one here. You can also see, how your efforts devoted to mapping and tagging your curriculum. Everything can happen. If I see a 3 or a 4, and I expect way more than 3 observations, then I know all I have to do is click on that, and I can then drill down to the instructor of the course and quickly send that information and kind of create an action plan, even with the faculty, and say, hey, could you please do me a favor and let's set a time to visit and tag some of your items and show them some of the valuable information. I have found that closing that assessment loop, so to speak, and reporting, kind of like a no duh, but it's usually at the end of the chain, and people just get tired and move on. By reporting the findings and results back to people, that has been probably the most significant motivator for people to continue engaging, because they get to see the result, and I can contextualize it specifically for their course. Like, even if they don't care about the full program, I can say, okay, fine, we'll just look at your individual course over time. And they're like, whoa, that's pretty cool. I never, like, I thought, I could have maybe guessed some of this stuff, but, and so just, it can do, it's so, there's so many benefits. It's hard to, I'm trying to reel it in a little bit, because it spans assessment, student affairs, 4th year clinics, those external criterion exam, like, VEA, how are our students doing when they take this external test? And then how does that performance compare to our performance within our program? There's just so many things. So I'll try not to get too, I get really excited.
No, that's great. And I'm going to go through those steps, right? So we're the only solution that integrates your curriculum map with how the students are performing in your courses. So then you're able to identify those gaps. Like you mentioned, it's like, hey, they're not tagging their questions. Like this course right here. And when I hover over it, it tells me it's survey of biochemistry. That course is supposed to be assessing that competency, and there's no data. There's lack of data. And I'm glad that you mentioned the action plans. So Enflux allows the users to quickly, without navigating out of it, document what they're finding. What's the data story? And the data story is that we have a gap in the curriculum. And that's Dr. Casey responsible for that course. And by the end of the month, he needs to make sure that he's tagging his questions. And we have a lot more stuff in the action items because it's one tool, unlimited potential. You can track your strategic plan, curriculum changes, committees, accreditation standards, being able to quickly say, this is about standard 10, let me label it now. And when you hit save, we take a screenshot of the data, everything is documented, they get email reminders, email alerts, it's all in one tool. So it goes back to the 3 pillars that we just discussed. We centralize the data, we give you out-of-the-box reports that are ready to go. As a matter of fact, if you become a customer today, we can connect to your data and give you this by the next day, and you're looking at your own dashboards. And 3 is management of activities. I just created this action plan, and here's the screenshot. So you can see that we take a screenshot of that, and all of our action items can be downloaded as a PDF in case you want to share that on an email or a presentation or take an image from there. Everything is well documented. And project management needs its own report. So we have that as well in our action plan. So you can track and see who's working on what and why and by when and what's the status. Poor Dr. Bob, I always pick him on demos. So he has 59 action items that are late, open and late. But hopefully for the programs, it looks different. So we have all of those tools in place. And for vet schools, we have also done the board exam. And it's so interesting what we're hearing from the schools that are obtaining these reports, like, oh my God, it's so nice to see this right away after we got the results. All I had to do is put them in this folder and everything got processed for me. Like for instance, Brandon, do you take a look at the first-time candidates? Is that like the main metric for your program?
That's what I look at. I think when it comes to reporting public-facing information, I think most people would probably wait until the ultimate performance. I personally would prefer to focus on the first-time passage. I think ultimately, sure, you can let people take it 6 times and they might. I don't think that's reflective of program health. Anyhow, so yeah, that's what I look at.
Wonderful. That's what we did. Yeah, that's what we did at the pharmacy school. We always look at the first-time candidates because that should be our goal, right? If you're going to have a KPI that you want to improve, it should be the % of students that pass the board exam on the first attempt. That's a good metric. Then from there, the other thing that we have in place is breaking down by species and organ systems. So now that we can see what we see 3 years of data in here, this is demo data. You see the total test, clinical practice, communication, and so on. And then we have this in here. And anything in orange is when the school performed poorly compared to the nation. So then we can see, for instance, oh my God, in this one, this demo school has continuously performed poorly compared to the nation. We can also change it to the previous year. So that way we can quickly focus on 2021. These are the ones where we perform poorly compared to the previous year. So we had a drop in performance. But we know that a lot of people like tables, like they like bar charts, but we also know that some people like tables. So we have added a table as well. So you can take a look at all of these and you can even sort them out and see how the students perform on the board exam. Student results. This one, it's quite interesting because you can see student by student how they perform. We're looking at all the years in aggregate, but you can click on any of these and see what the distribution looks like. Did we have more failing students this year than last year? And who are those students? So do you have a consent form for the students so they can provide you, so you can get this level of detail from the students?
Are you asking like when they are asked to report their NAVLE scores back to the, Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have the option. We encourage them, but they technically don't have to, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. I think that's true. They don't have to. So you're going to get them for some, and some students won't have that kind of information.
We just say please a lot, and it seems to, we usually get them almost all of them. No one, because I think they trust the process and they know that it's valuable and useful. And I think just that conversation usually helps for us to get almost everybody back.
Absolutely. And it's a gamification thing, right? Like maybe once you're done, what if you were able to share something like this? And let me pick a good year. This is demo data. The real data, as you know, Brandon, is highly correlated.
Oh yeah, it's clean. Yeah, just like that probably.
Yeah, where you see clearly like, this is how you perform in the VA. This is how you perform in the NAPLEX. NAPLEX, that's for pharmacy, NAPLE. And being able to the gamification, like the same thing that you did with faculty and saying, hey, look at your data. Have you seen how your students perform across time? I think that showing people this kind of data or information it's rewarding. It's feedback, and it's like, okay, what can we do? And I have never asked this question. I don't know if students that just graduated would like to see this, or the students that are about to graduate. Would they like to see this and know the importance of sharing the grades back to the school so that they can support the students that are graduating after them, so that they can see the correlation of this? We have great news. We have a project in place to take this Pearson correlation and apply it to current students so that you can kind of see where they might fall on the board exam. So it's a prediction of how the students might perform on the board exam based on your own data, not on the data of everyone in the nation, but your own data, because as you're aware, your school might be different than the other programs. So yeah, this is what we have. I can take you through all the reports. I mean, right here, we're looking at just one category and saying anything below, let's say 30. And then I want to see who got more than 60. And it tells you each square represents a student, and it shows you how many are less than 30. And we can see we didn't have anything in 2019, then we had some in 2020, and then we have more in 2021. So just looking at those trends, you can also sort the information and see where the student performed poorly compared to the other students. Right here, you click on the student, and then you get all of this is just that specific student in place.
If I may, I really like this
Absolutely.
one, especially as it relates to student affairs and admissions. If they're getting those NAVLE results, and then they're going to look back and report, and it's, for accreditation, and then also kind of just looking at their admissions criteria and what they're using. It's instantaneous. Like, there's no work anymore. There's no exporting. There's no cross-referencing. There's no putting it into your system. It's just there, and it almost it almost, I think it's so easy and quick that it makes people, I don't know if guilt is the right word, but like, you're so conditioned to think that this should be such a more laborious task to get that satisfaction, that I feel like I'm stealing some people's joy sometimes, because they're like, oh, we're going to do this, and I'm like, okay, or you could just look at the screenshot of this report I just sent you, and it's already done. And then after they're like, whoa, so you mean I can do something else now? And you're like, yeah, go do that project that you've been wanting to do. I really like the pass fail one that you're on NAVLE, because you could pick those students super quickly, and you could track them all the way back through the program to admissions and look at, is there something that you want to tweak in your admissions committee? And you could have actual information and create profiles. That's something that they have me. One of the first things our associate dean asked me was, could you parse out all of the students who didn't perform, as expected on the NAVLE, going back as far as you want, and then basically export those students, track them back through the program all the way to admissions, and let's look at their admissions criteria, and what did we miss something, or what happened. And that's just very powerful, and it's such a time saving for our director of student affairs, up in Robin in the front office, and even the committee, just because it's so quick. Anyhow, I just had a little anecdote about that.
No, I'm so happy to hear
query.
that, because we have we're adding a new feature into our platform where you're going to be able to add like a label to those students. So imagine you identify them, then you add a label to those students in the back end, like on the settings. And then you can go to any of the other reports and filter those students by using that filter and say, show me like you said, the students that failed the board exam. Then maybe we have failed board exam in the last 3 years, and being able to see that aggregate, even the curriculum, and seeing what does the curriculum performance look like for those students that failed, and how did they perform on the board, on the standardized testing, in the classroom, in clinical rotations. You're going to be able to quickly just see that in one place.
That's awesome.
So we have so much in our platform. but we wanted to focus more on what are some of the tools that can help you with competency-based education. And that's why we went through the curriculum and we went to the standardized testing, including the board exam. But now I want to open it for Q&A. If you have any questions, please raise your hand or feel free to type in the chat. Let us know if you have any questions about the presentation. Let's see. Okay. I saw something moving in our chat, but I don't know what happened.
I don't have, it's not, the chat's not enabled for me. So I'll just ask, what is the price point for this program?
That's a great question. So the way it works is by number of students in ExamSoft. So we do a fee per year per student, and you get what we call the EDU solution that includes the curriculum, the student report card, the identifying students at risk. We also have a report that can help you obtain 100% tagging on your questions. So we have all of that. That's per student per year. Our platform has a fee as well, and that's by users. And then there's a flat fee per year on the vet schools. So it depends on number of schools, number of faculty, and users that you have in the platform. If you would like to send me those numbers over, or after this meeting, we can reach out to you and meet and go over those numbers so I can quickly run a quote for you.
Okay.
I would say I never like when people ask a question about pricing, you don't get an answer. I'm not trying to be fake. I really want to provide you something, but let's say that a school that has about maybe 100 students, the whole platform would be somewhere, starting point would be somewhere around like $10,000 to $12,000 per year. But like I said, we can chat after this and we can go over a specific quote for your needs. It's modular. You don't have to buy everything or nothing. You can let us know where would you like to start and with what tools and how many users. And our goal is to grow with you.
Okay.
That's a great question. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Brandon, thank you so much.
I'm more excited about just to share a new way. We were thinking of using it because it's so powerful. So specifically, let's talk think year 4 and remediation and students on clinics. And the student action or the action planning, right? So what does remediation look like? How do you identify those students? If they are underperforming, do they slowly slip into the void and try to just stay under the radar and avoid cases and just get, So what's really cool is, so we have the Associate Dean's Administrative Assistant. We're putting her through the training, and specifically, I want her to become proficient with the action planning. And that way, after one rotation, we already are going to know who's underperforming. And she can immediately create an action plan on that student, tag the next clinician in that student's rotation sequence, and then create attach performance, whatever the expected level of performance, like this student was, did not meet expectations in these 2 competency areas. And the next clinician will get that report through the tag and basically know ahead of time without, first, I guess it probably depends on your remediation policy, but before removing them and sending them maybe to like clinical skills lab or something, like just on the floor remediation, if it was just very, very minor, the next clinician has that report and knows that the individual student might need additional opportunities to come up with treatment plans or take on different cases or whatever. And so that way they don't just kind of try to stay invisible. I'm not saying that everybody does that, but we've seen a pattern where the students at risk will try to become less engaged in the program because they don't want to demonstrate, that they're not meeting expectations. And so
Under the radar. They're
it's
just
kind of
like,
just a disservice to themselves, because now they're not going to get everything they can out of it, and it affects their confidence, their satisfaction, their well-being. But now it's just taking action, having a plan, and everybody's on the same page, and it's just kind of, and it's okay, it's safe, no one, doesn't make you a bad, so that's been really exciting, because just the associate dean assistant can manage and track all of those different action plans, and and then also follow up because of the date setting that you have. It's like, okay, we needed them to get back to the level of an advanced beginner by next Friday. Did they do that? Yes. Okay, good. Crisis averted. So I that's just kind of a new thing. I'm kind of just connecting. For me, I'm figuring out, like, the starting point for me was like, I get your dashboards and I take your recommendations and I use them just globally and get that nice value. Now I'm looking for ways to like strategically use them with strategic individuals in our college, and then giving them an opportunity and saying, like, here's professional development. This is going to save you, and you're not going to have to do anything with these spreadsheets anymore. This is going to make your life easier. And they were like, oh, great, I'll take your training. And so that's just one recent thing that I was really excited about on how to use this.
Yes, Brandon, thank you so much for sharing that. We're learning from our customers on how they're utilizing the platform. They're using it in ways that I never thought, and it's amazing, and it's incredible to see the outcomes. But that's one of the main reasons, like, I'm committed to even sharing like kind of cliff notes, like if you want to create something homegrown because you have the time, you're interested in it, here are the steps. I want to share with everybody what are the steps and what are the things that need to be done. But we're here to help as well. And it's easy onboarding, easy implementation. And we're continuously developing new things and giving our customers early access to that. Big news is, I think anytime soon, we're releasing faculty development sessions. So if you have a new faculty member, they went to vet school to be veterinarians, it's really hard for them to know how to teach, how to assess. So we're creating set of modules that they can do on their own to learn about those things. What are course learning objectives? How do they tie to competencies? How do they tie to milestones? What does it mean? So we're creating those. They're going to get released anytime soon. It's called Influx Academy. And the second one is we're doing machine learning and artificial intelligence to tag questions. So we started with Bloom's taxonomy. So for those that attended today's session, I'll send you a link to a preview that we have. You can just copy and paste a question. It would tell you what the Bloom's taxonomy is and why. It would highlight those words. And the next step is to tag that with mesh terms that are tagged to competencies. So that way we overcome that challenge of people not tagging questions. And I envision that to be almost like a dating app. Thumbs up, down, like, yeah, no, yes, you're right, you're wrong. We want that kind of feedback so that the machine learns better on how to tag the questions. So we're really excited of where we are. We love working with the programs that we're working with, over 12 disciplines. I never thought about that. Not even remotely. We started with pharmacy schools about 4 years ago, and now we're working with 12 disciplines. It's amazing. It's an honor and a pleasure to work with all of you. So Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today. And for those that are listening, you might get an email from us, or Ricky will reach out to you to see if you have any questions, especially pricing, or if you want a one-on-one demo, we can definitely schedule that with you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Everybody. Bye.